read these 3 books on leadership, and I want to share some of the key ideas I learned that have really allowed me to become a more effective leader and to connect with others on a much deeper level. Let's dive in. What does every great leader have in common? They all have a set of non-negotiable principles, and that's where the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell comes in. When you think of leadership, you may think of someone being in charge or having an important title, but John Maxwell stresses that leadership is so much more than that. You need a vision, you need influence, and you need to be willing to serve others. Now, as the title suggests, this book is a collection of 21 laws that really serve as a guide to the do's and don'ts of leadership. One of my favorite laws is the law of the lid, which is the idea that your leadership ability is the lid that determines your effectiveness. Maxwell goes through a really interesting story in the book to explain this. Back in the 1940s, 2 brothers operated and owned a small drive-in burger restaurant in San Bernardino, California that was exploding in popularity. They had created a highly efficient system that allowed them to fill customers' orders in 30 seconds or less, and that was unheard of at the time. But there was a problem. Despite the restaurant's innovative approach, the 2 brothers struggled to scale beyond a single restaurant. The reason? Their lack of leadership ability put a lid on their success. Now you might be wondering, who were these brothers? Well, meet Dick and Maurice McDonald, the founders of the first ever McDonald's. So I guess the question is, with over 40,000 locations worldwide today, how did McDonald's grow from a restaurant that was struggling to expand to a fast food empire? This is where Ray Kroc comes in. In the 1950s, Kroc joined McDonald's with a vision that would allow the business to reach its full potential. John Maxwell explains that Kroc had a much higher leadership lid, and he was able to take the revolutionary concept from the McDonald's brothers and expand it on a massive scale, turning McDonald's into one of the most successful franchises in history. Maxwell stresses that leadership has a multiplying effect. Increase your leadership skills and you will become more effective. Now, one more law that I want to share is the law of process that says that leadership skills are not developed overnight, but rather through consistent and persistent habits and effort. Just like you wouldn't expect to get in good shape after a single run, you can't expect to become a great leader instantly. This is something that you need to work at, and the 19 remaining laws will serve as a good guide to get you moving. As leaders, how should you respond when you or someone on your team makes a mistake? That's the central idea that Jocko Willink and Leif Babin discuss in their book, Extreme Ownership. Jocko and Leif are both former US Navy SEALs and share some really intense stories. But rest assured, this book can be applied no matter what situation you are in life. The central idea of the book is simple yet profound. Leaders must take responsibility over everything in their world. If something goes wrong, it's on you. Let's say a member of your team makes an error. Maybe they miss an important deadline. Instead of blaming that person, you instead ask yourself what you could have done differently. Did you give clear instructions? Did you give them enough time? Did something outside of their control happen? There's no excuses, no blaming others, just extreme ownership. Now, don't expect to be able to magically start practicing extreme ownership over your team. But one thing I do suggest is to begin to practice extreme ownership over your own life. In order to lead others, we must be able to first lead ourselves. When I was first starting out on YouTube, it was easy to blame the algorithm for why the channel wasn't growing. But over time, I realized that YouTube is a skill that can be learned, and I needed to take extreme ownership over the fact that my videos just weren't good enough at the time. Now, this idea of extreme ownership is also a great way to identify up-and-coming leaders. If you have a team member that takes responsibility in their day-to-day actions, this is a great indicator for leadership potential. Extreme ownership can be a tough mindset to grasp at first, but it's something that will really empower you to continuously improve yourself and the team around you. This last book takes a different spin on leadership than the first 2. In Dare to Lead by Brené Brown, it's all about the human element of leadership. If you're familiar with Brené's work, you know she's all about vulnerability, courage, and authenticity. And in Dare to Lead, she brings these ideas into the leadership space, challenging us to rethink what it means to be a courageous leader. And one of my favorite ideas from the book is her discussion on the importance of clarity. She has a great line where she says, "Clear is kind. Unclear is unkind. Let's imagine you're having a one-to-one conversation with one of your team members. You feel like this team member isn't performing to a high enough standard and is not getting enough work done during their workdays. But instead of being clear about the issues, you give vague and general feedback, mostly focusing on praising and encouraging their strengths. And you avoid the tough conversation because you don't want to ruffle any feathers. You want to be nice and polite. Brown stresses that this is unfair to your team. When you don't give honest feedback, your team won't know what they actually need to change, and that means that there will be no improvement, which only leads to frustration and a damage of trust. So as leaders, we need to set clear expectations and give clear feedback if we want to create a healthy environment for our team. It's simple, but it's a reminder that being clear and direct, even when it may be uncomfortable, is the right thing to do. Now, Brown also stresses the importance of leading with confidence. And so if you'd like to learn about how to build confidence, check out this video where I discuss 3 of my favorite books on the topic. Spoiler alert, it actually includes one of Brené Brown's other books. I'll see you there.